So I had a suggestion from Elaine about another direction for another class. I'm looking at a couple of books, brand new books, but Elaine suggested really studying the career of King David, who's really a fascinating character from his youth to his actually battle for the kingship. Remember, after Saul dies, he has to battle one of Saul's other children. Both Saul and Jonathan die at the same time. Jonathan, Saul's son, but he has to battle to attain the kingship. His reign as king, his dealing with Bathsheba and her husband, and confrontation with the prophet.
Actually, it's Nora, his wife. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm on a class with Rabbi Isaac now. Oh, okay. I'm calling about the auction and about meals. Okay. Will you call me back when you have a chance? No, I can't take your number. You call me back.
Okay.
How long?
Okay.
About noon.
We have
Somehow,
Thank you.
for everyone.
we've got-
I hope that you are. That's a reminder that you're all signed up for this Saturday night for the concert, and yeah, it's concert and auction, right? Yeah, concert and
Sunday night.
a Sunday night. I'm sorry, Sunday night, right? And it's my brother-in-law, who is leading an Israeli education organization called Kidum, is running his fundraiser exactly the same night. So split loyalties.
What were your two ideas? You said you had two books you were thinking of.
Yeah, I don't have them here in front of me. So as a matter of fact, I will write to everyone with a couple of books. I don't know if there's anyone who has a suggestion for where we go after this class.
Not a book like this one.
What's that?
Not a book like this one.
Not a book like this one. Okay, well, we'll talk about that. Maybe not today. We'll talk about that next week as well. So this week we're going to talk about Ben Adam, Son of Man, and I found it interesting, but somewhat curious. And what we're talking about is the transition of the term "Son of Man," which our author refers to as simply an idiom, from referring to a human being to specifically referring to Jesus. And we'll look at that in a couple of places. Also, I don't see Barbara here, but Barbara asked last week if we have false messiahs prior to Jesus, which I thought was an interesting question, and maybe we'll get to that as well. So the term Ben Adam occurs 107 times in the Tanakh, in the Bible. 107 times, and it's buried in our text that say 93 of those 107 times occur in one book.
Daniel.
They occur in the book of Ezekiel. So it's 107 times, almost all of them appearing in the book of Ezekiel, and the term also occurs 85 times in the Christian scriptures, in the New Testament, but it seems to, and in the mouth of Jesus, in which he seems to be, as we'll see, referring to himself. So if you figure 93 times in the book of Ezekiel, there are 48 chapters in the book of Ezekiel.
I'll get the phone.
In other words, the term Son of Man, Ben Adam, occurs on average twice in every chapter. And almost every chapter, verse 2 in Ezekiel says, and the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Son of man. What I'd like to do is look at one of the most famous. I mean, in one chapter it appears, in a couple of chapters it appears 6 times. Chapter 12 it occurs 2, 4, 6 times. In chapter 21 it occurs 2, 4, 6, 8 times. It's a common term. But I wanted to turn to the, let me see how I can do this. I have to go to here, go back to the gallery. Come on, give me back. Exit full screen, that's what I want. Okay. So the most famous chapter of the book of Ezekiel is chapter 37. I lost you, but I hope you can still hear me.
We're
We
here.
hear you.
We can still hear you.
Here we go. So
Here's the question.
is it a question?
Yeah, I have a question. How do you get from son of man to son of God? I don't see the leap.
Well, no, in the New Testament, Jesus still refers to himself as Son of Man.
Yes.
I mean, the term Son of God appears as well. I don't know as much about the term Son of God. Can you all see this biblical text?
No.
What do I have to do? Oh, I have to go to screen share.
Minor point.
Okay, screen share. Okay.
There
Yeah.
we go.
Now you can see it?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So this is a famous chapter 37 of the book of Ezekiel. We read it as a haftarah during the year, but this is the famous hip bones connected to the thigh bone.
The
Right?
valley of the bones.
This is the valley of dry bones.
Yep.
So I have it in 2 pieces because I couldn't get it all on one page. So here's chapter 37 of Ezekiel. The hand of the Lord came upon me, Ezekiel speaking. He took me out by the Spirit of the Lord and set me down in the valley. It was full of bones. He led me all around them. There were very many of them spread over the valley, and they were very dry. He said to me, O mortal, that's Ben Adam, human being. O mortal, that's how it's translated in the JPS. Can these bones live again? I replied, O Lord God, only you know. So here you have this O mortal, and what's the implication here? That God is supreme. God has this conversation with Ezekiel, and he is speaking to a lowly human being, right? He's speaking to a not someone with any special powers. He's you, O mortal. And he said to me, prophesy over these bones and say to them. Now, what exactly prophesy means is I'm not exactly sure. And say to them, O dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. Thus said the Lord God to these bones, I will cause breath to enter you, and you shall live again. I will lay sinew upon you and cover you with flesh and form skin over you, and I will put breath into you, and you shall live again. And you shall know that I am the Lord. Pause. Screen share. Come on. I prophesied. You can see that?
Yeah.
This is a continuation. I prophesied as I had been commanded, and while I was prophesying, suddenly there was a sound of rattling, and the bones came together. bone to matching bone. I looked, and there were sinews on them, and flesh had grown, and skin had formed over them, and there was no breath in them. Then he, God, said to me, prophesy to the breath, prophesy to the breath, prophesy, O mortal Ben Adam. Say to the breath, thus said the Lord God, come, O breath, from the four winds, and breathe into these slain, that they may live again. I prophesied as he commanded me. The breath entered them, and they came to life, and stood up on their feet, a vast multitude. And he said to me, O mortal, these bones are the whole house of Israel. They say, our bones are dried up, our hope is gone, we are doomed. Prophesy therefore, and say to them, thus said the Lord God, I am going to open your graves and lift you out of the graves, O my people, and bring you to the land of Israel. You shall know, O my people, that I am the Lord, where I have opened your graves and lifted you out of your graves. I will put my breath into you, and you shall live again, and I will set you upon your own soil. Then you shall know that I, the Lord, have spoken and have acted, declares the Lord. So this is this very, very familiar piece. Before we get to Son of Man, what did it mean in Ezekiel's time? What was Ezekiel saying? I mean, this has a meaning apparently of the time it was written, and also a meaning that was taken later on. So at the time, we have any, let me go back here. What was the meaning of this text in Ezekiel's time? Remember, Ezekiel is speaking to a diaspora, to people who have been taken to Babylonia and who are downtrodden. They are no hope for really a future. And this is Ezekiel saying, you are the dry bones. And God is there to protect you, to defend you, to bring you back to life again. So that's where this story takes place. I suspect that that's also why this vision became the source for the Negro spiritual. That you are downtrodden, don't give up hope. But what other meanings do you think over the centuries this passage had? What do they do with this passage?
The resettlement of Israel.
Well, there's the resettlement of Israel, but we have the theology of the resurrection of the dead. Comes from here. That was clearly not Ezekiel's idea. But the idea of the resurrection of the dead is what the rabbis understood this chapter was all about. And in fact, probably the source of the dead all reuniting, and not only the living, but the dead all reuniting in Eretz Yisrael. So that's this famous chapter. Again, 93 out of 107 times that the word Ben Adam appears. That's 14. Only 14 times outside the book of Ezekiel does it refer to simply a human being. We then have these passages in Daniel. Daniel is a very crazy book. I mean, I remember my father who would read. We had a children's Bible book, and my father would read to me any chapter that I wanted before I went to bed when I was a little kid. And of course, I kept asking for Daniel. Uh, so I don't remember what that book told us about Daniel, but Daniel is really the first six or seven chapters, as our author describes, are written in Aramaic, and they are stories about Daniel, who lives during the time of Nebuchadnezzar. So Nebuchadnezzar was, of course, the Babylonian king who exiled conquered the southern kingdom and exiled the southern kingdom. Chapters 7 through 11 or 12, whatever it is, are apocalyptic chapters that are written in Hebrew. It's very, I don't know, whether the theory is that these were written by different people, but it's the scholars say that this is a book that was written in the 2nd century. When these books were written is important. That is a 2nd century text, 2nd century BCE, with an ostensible 6th century setting. Right? The setting is during the time of King Nebuchadnezzar, but probably written 400 years later, which is sort of interesting. And there, in one of the texts, if you follow in the chapter, he refers to rather than simply Ben Adam, he refers to Kidmut Ben Adam, in the image of a human being. Well, what in heaven's name does that mean? In the Kidmut, as in the image of a human being, no one really knows, but the scholars generally think that this is a reference to an angel, probably the angel Michael. In other words, the term, which was simply a term, Ben Adam, son of Adam, human being, very often, and they emphasize here, referring simply to a male human being, that all of a sudden in Daniel, it has another beyond human being reference. So I'm going to screen share again. Let's see, we want to go. Is this the right one? Yes, we're going to go to the book of Mark. Anybody ever studied the book of Mark? I don't think I put up on screen share any New Testament so far. So here's New Testament. I'm going to bring you two selections from the book of Mark. I don't know if you can see all the way into the crease.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, so this is from chapter 13. At that time, if anyone says to you, so this is Jesus speaking, look, here's the Messiah, or there he is, don't believe him. I'm going to read it from the book I have here. So 13. Let me just get to the right page here. Mark 13:26. At that time, if anyone says to you, look, here's the Messiah, or see, there he is, don't believe him. There will appear false messiahs and false prophets performing signs and wonders for the purpose, if possible, of misleading the chosen. The chosen being us, right? Being all the people that Jesus is dealing with. But you, watch out. I have told you everything in advance. In those days after the trouble, the sun will grow dark, the moon will stop shining, the stars will fall from the sky, and the powers in heaven will be shaken. Now you see that, can you see at the end of shaken, there's a little above the period, there's a little, you can't even make out what it is. But if you refer all the way to the bottom, you'll see that that there's a reference to the book of Daniel. Can you see that? Only the last thing at the bottom here. Can I point it out? Yeah, right down here. You see that? Daniel.
It says Isaiah, but
Well, there's Isaiah and there's Daniel and but I think that this is Jesus referring to the book of, to some of these references, but it's interesting that Daniel is here twice, here at the beginning, Daniel here, Daniel here. So let me just go on. So in those days after that trouble, the sun will grow dark, the moon will stop shining, the stars will fall from the sky, and the powers in heaven will be shaken. Then they will see the Son of Man coming in clouds with tremendous power and glory. He will send out his angels and gather together his chosen people from the four winds, from the ends of the earth to the ends of heaven. So here you can see it is the term, the Son of Man coming in the clouds, a direct reference to the book of Daniel, and it's clearly not a human being, or not an ordinary human being, like it is in all the other references. And I want to show you one other reference. I get rid of this one. Now let me go to this one. Okay, open it. And now I have to turn it. And now I have to come. Where'd you go? I lost you.
We're here.
Yeah, I know that, but I can't put screen share unless I can see you. But how can I? Wait a minute, if I get rid of this, no, you're still not there. Where are you?
Here.
Right here. We
Um,
haven't gone anyplace.
I understand that.
all here.
You're all here and I'm not.
We see you.
You see me. Okay.
Yes.
If I can't bring that piece up, I'm gonna read just this is now from chapter 8, because it's a very important chapter. Also from the book of Mark. And I wanted to put it up, but I clearly can't. And so here it's, the text is beginning with chapter 8, verse 27. Yeshua and his Talmidim, it's interesting that this translation uses Talmidim, went on to the towns of Caesarea Philippi. On the way, he asked his Talmidim, who are people saying I am? Some say you are Yochanan, the immerser. Anybody know who Yochanan the immerser is?
John the Baptist.
John the Baptist, right. They told him, others say Eliyahu, Elijah, and still others, one of the prophets. But you, he asked, who do you say I am? Kepha answered, you are the Mashiach. Then Yeshua warned them not to tell anyone about him. He began teaching them that the Son of Man had to endure much suffering and be rejected by the elders, the head Kohanim, and the Torah teachers, and that he had to be put to death, but that after 3 days, he had to rise again. He spoke very plainly about it. Kepha took him aside and began rebuking him. But turning around and looking at his Talmidim, he rebuked Kepha. Get behind me, Satan, he said, for your thinking is from the human perspective, not from God's perspective. Now, where was, that was in verse 31. He began teaching them that the Son of Man, verse 31, he began teaching that the Son of Man had to endure much suffering and be rejected by the elders. Everybody see how the term Son of Man has really changed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am not happy here. I can't see you. I'm gonna have to do this again. Hold on, I'll be right there. Shucks. Come on.
Have you tried moving all the other windows out of the way?
What
Maybe
I
hidden
did-
behind something.
Yeah, that's possible. No, I'm trying to launch the meeting again, and I'm not being successful. All right, so in any event, so we go from where this term clearly in the Hebrew scriptures simply means human being, is an idiom for human being, to through the book of Daniel, where it appears to mean something else, perhaps something superhuman, something angelic, to the New Testament, where it refers to, where the term Ben Adam refers to Jesus.
Rabbi, I thought Jesus was the Son of God.
Well, he's both, but here, when he refers to himself as Son of Man. I'm not successful here in looking.
It's a. Did you stop screen sharing?
I can't even see screen share because I can't see you. I went back to launch meeting.
I've always considered that a strange balance because, in liturgy, we refer to Hashem as Avinu Malkeinu.
Okay, and therefore?
And therefore we are Son of God.
We are Son of God.
Right.
Um,
Avinu is our Father.
right. I'm not getting anywhere here, and I'm.
Rabbi, have you tried the gallery view? Can you go on that?
I don't see anybody at all. You can see me, and
You can see, I can see the whole gallery view. I can see everyone.
yeah, but I can't. I don't know how to get back to.
Okay. Can you go up to the upper right-hand corner?
Right-hand
Do you see the Rubik's Cube with the word view next to it, or the top of a Rubik's Cube?
Yeah, no.
Sounds like he doesn't see even that. Should we sign off and sign back on again, Rabbi?
No, it's me. So
Sounds like your desktop disappeared there.
you know what? I'm not going to play with this. If you're still there, that's the important thing.
Is
We're
there a
here.
ribbon at the bottom? Are you on a Mac?
Okay. I am on a Mac, yes.
So if you go down to the bottom, do you see the little Zoom icon there?
No,
Ribbon at the bottom?
no, I don't see the
That
Zoom
disappeared too.
icon at the bottom even.
Can you go to the Finder and then
All of a
application?
sudden I saw Priscilla. What happened?
Oh,
There we go.
there you go.
Now I just see me.
So Miriam,
Where did you stay?
we stayed. What's the place called, Carol? Oh, the Gilbert Inn.
Wait a
Oh,
minute.
that's lovely.
Wait a minute. No.
Why are we?
No, you
hearing
got an
you on your phone
old
call?
thing
So
here.
we yes, we went with our.
That's not me.
To a recording.
That's a recording. All right, so I thought I had it, but I didn't. The other thing that I wanted to share with you, and I can't do it this way, is, well, a couple of things. First of all, there's I think a very important text. If you have your book, it's on page 399. And if you don't have your book, I don't know what to do. So on that page, I'm going to read simply the text. So it says, the title has gone from Hebrew to Aramaic to Greek, from indicating human in Psalms and Ezekiel to one like a human, such as an angel in Daniel, to a human, the suffering servant, a Davidic heir who is divine. So that's the progression that we just read. Everybody with me?
Yes.
Okay. Daniel R. Schwartz, such a Jewish name, but I don't know if he's Jewish or not. Daniel R. Schwartz writes, now this sentence is most important. What made Christianity succeed was its ability to transform the belief that a son of David would restore the kingdom of Israel into the belief that a son of man had inaugurated the kingdom of God. Let me read that again. What made Christianity succeed was its ability to transform the belief that a son of David would restore the king of Israel, the kingdom of Israel. That's what the messianic belief was, into a new belief that a son of man, in other words, Jesus, had inaugurated the kingdom of God. In this single sentence, he encapsulates the complex process by which Daniel's one like a son of man, who receives dominion on earth, becomes the Son of Man, now a title rather than a description, who redeems from sin and death. Like a good apocalyptic symbol, Daniel's one like a son of man remains open. We really don't know what that means. And like any good apocalyptic text, Daniel provides a vision of hope that can be applied to any situation. No matter how powerful the emperor might be, no matter how much he threatens to destroy culture and community, divine protection will come. And this heavenly protector will look like one of us, that is a human being, a human male, but be something more, a supernatural being whose rule is both just and eternal. So this is really the summary of the transition. Okay. Again, I'm really not in any place that I want.
Rabbi,
Yep.
a question. Okay, on that last sentence that you just read.
That's the recording again.
Okay, where it says, and this heavenly protector will look like one of us, that is a human male, but be something more, a supernatural being whose rule is both just and eternal. Is there a reference here to the fact that people in the biblical days, the people at the time that we're reading about, when Daniel was writing or Ezekiel was writing or whomever, that they were having visions, that they were seeing beings that did not look like us?
Well, we have various visions that how the Messiah will come. They come as a pauper riding on a donkey. So that sort of indicates a vision of a human being, not a royal human being, but a simple human being. Goodness, what can I do here? What can I
For a few days.
No.
Oh, I remember you saying that.
I don't know where this recording is coming from, but I can't get rid of it. Were they seeing what we in the question that Barbara asked last time, and I'm sorry that I'm glad that you can see me, but I can't see you. In the story that Barbara, the question that Barbara asked last time, which I thought was very good, was were there false messiahs before Jesus? We know there were false messiahs, Shabtai Tzvi and the Frankists and a number of others after Jesus. But what was before Jesus? And I didn't get a good response to that. But there is the famous story of Elijah. Now, Elijah is, of course, in the 9th century BCE. And where is this here? And I have this on a screen share as well, but I can't share it if I can't get back to you. It's 1 Kings. 1 Kings 18. 1 Kings chapter 18. And this is the time with Elijah and the king, and Ahab was the king, and Jezebel was his wife. Jezebel, who was a devotee of Baal, and so she would get rid of the prophets. And this famous story of the confrontation between Elijah and all the other and the Baal prophets. Ahab sent orders to all the Israelites and gathered the prophets at Mount Carmel. Those of you who have visited Israel and been to Haifa know that there's an area. There's Mount Carmel. Elijah approached all the people and said, "How long?" There's a very important expression in Hebrew today. How long will you keep hopping between two opinions? In other words, you're sitting there not choosing God and not choosing Baal. You want to have both. You want to have both of them. If the Lord is God, follow him. And if Baal, follow him. But the people answered him not a word. Then Elijah said to the people, "I am the only prophet of the Lord left, while the prophets of Baal are 450 men. Let 2 young bulls be given to us. Let them choose one bull, cut it up, and lay it on the wood. But let them not apply fire. I will prepare the other bull and lay it on the wood, and will not apply fire. You will then invoke your God by name, and I will invoke the Lord by name. And let us agree, the God who responds with fire, that one is God." And all the people answered, "Very good." Right. So everybody understand the scene here. This is the test. They're going to lay pieces of the bull out, and they're not going to use a match or anything else. However, they started fire, and the one where God brings fire, that one is really God. Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, "Choose one bull and prepare it first, for you are the majority. Invoke your God by name, but apply no fire." They took the bull that was given them, they prepared it and invoked Baal by name from morning until noon, shouting, "Oh, Baal, answer us." But there was no sound and none who responded. So they performed a hopping dance about the altar that had been set up. When noon came, Elijah mocked them, saying, "Shout louder. After all, he's a god, but he may be in a conversation. He may be detained, or he may be on a journey, or perhaps he's asleep and will wake up." So they shouted louder and gashed themselves with knives and spears according to their practice, until blood streamed over them. When noon passed, they kept raving until the hour of presenting the meal offering. Still, there was no sound and none who responded or heeded. Then Elijah said to all the people, "Come closer to me." And all the people came close to him. He repaired the damaged altar of the Lord. Then Elijah took 12 stones corresponding to the number of tribes of the sons of Jacob, to whom the word of the Lord had come. Israel shall be your name. And with the stones, he built an altar in the name of the Lord. Around the altar, he made a trench large enough for 2 seahs of seed. He laid out the wood, he cut up the bull and laid it on the wood. And he said, "Fill 4 jars with water and pour the water over the burnt offering and the wood." Then he said, "Do it a second time." And they did it a second time. "Do it a third time." And he said, and they did it a third time. Then water ran down around the altar, and even the trench was filled with water. When the time came to present the meal offering, the prophet Elijah came forward and said, "O Lord God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known today that you are God in Israel, and that I am your servant, and that I have done all these things at your bidding. Answer me, O Lord, answer me, that this people may know that you, O God, O Lord, are God, for you have turned their hearts backward." Then the fire of the Lord descended and consumed the burnt offering, the wood, the stones, and the earth, and licked up the water that was in the trench. When they saw all this, the people flung themselves on their faces and cried out, "The Lord alone is God. The Lord alone is God." By the way, that's how we end Yom Kippur. Adonai hu ha'Elohim, Adonai hu ha'Elohim. That Elijah said to them, "Seize the prophets of Baal. Let not a single one of them get away." They seized them, and Elijah took them down to the Wadi Kishon, and he slaughtered them there. Bloody mess. But this is the one example that I could find of false prophets prior to Jesus. It appears that around the time of Jesus, I can't see you, so I assume that you're still there. Are you still there, everyone?
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
So let me just share the following with you. By the late Second Temple period, that's the Second Temple is destroyed in the year 70. So we're talking about in the centuries just before and around Jesus' time. By the late Second Temple period, references to the Messiah had proliferated throughout Jewish writings. As the Greco-Roman Empire subjected the Jews to harsh and anti-Semitic decrees, there was a renewed sense of urgency to find a leader who would bring respite from suffering. Late biblical books such as Daniel, along with other post-biblical texts known as the Apocrypha, offer explicit visions as to what the ultimate redemption would bring. So this was a time around the time of Jesus where there were a lot of messianic hopes, and there are some scholars who say that in fact John the Baptist was in fact not a follower of Jesus, but a competitor of Jesus. Understandably, this increase in messianic discussion brought an increase in messianic predictions and even the coronation of certain people as the Messiah. During the first few centuries, the Common Era, that's after Jesus, there would be scores of individuals claiming to be Mashiach, the vast majority of them never able to amass any type of following. Perhaps the most famous example is that of Jesus Christ, literally Jesus the Messiah. The majority of the Jewish community rejected this young charismatic Jew as Mashiach, though he amassed a large following among non-Jews and started a movement that has become one of the largest religions in the world today. So this ferment seemingly went was common at that time, and Jesus just became one of many that became successful. And why did he become successful? And he says it sort of in the last sentence. They turned to the Gentiles. They turned to the non-Jews. So the Jesus success began with Jewish followers, but it might not have succeeded had they not turned, especially with Paul, to seeking Gentile participants.
I did.
I feel badly that I can't see you, and now I'm wondering if stay where you are. I'm going to try and get out and come back.
He can't see us. He can't see.
Wait a minute, there you are.
Hi.
I can see you.
Can you hear us?
I can hear you. I don't know what I just did, but for whatever reason, I can hear you all. So,
So the whole idea then that the idea of Jesus was to preach to the non-Jew.
well, no. Jesus didn't do that.
No.
Jesus himself did not preach to the non-Jew. That's something that Jewish followers, in seeking to succeed with their effort, these were Jews. There was what was called a Jewish church, but they weren't making the headway that they hoped to and expected to within the Jewish community. But they had but the other messiahs, false messiahs, or pretenders, did not do what Paul did, and that is to find an audience among non-Jews. So this was a time of a number of these individuals.
I think I hear.
Anybody have any questions? I'm not sure that I understood really in many ways the import of this chapter. We have the change in terminology from Son of Man referring to a human being to the Son of Man referring specifically to Jesus in the Christian scripture. Priscilla?
So your questions. I'm thinking about the time of Jesus and the fact that there were other groups or other individuals who were looking for new ways to interpret what was their current state of Judaism. So that there were people who followed him, Jews who followed him, making a Jewish church. And as his followers announced to you, you don't have to do this and you don't have to do that, and don't worry about kashrut, and so on and so forth. There were people who moved in that direction. The Essenes and the Sadducees and all these splinter groups that were out there kind of evolving their interpretation of the Judaism that was then. It was demanding. And I'm thinking about what's happened to Judaism in the last 150 years, I'm thinking 150, maybe more, where we've gone from basically a very strict interpretation, making a swing in one direction, to Reform Judaism, and then in another direction to conservative Judaism, because this was too far this way, and then this was too far that way, and conservative Judaism was kind of in the middle, and then you have Reconstructionist over here, Jewish renewal over here. In many ways, aren't we going through some of the same things, not necessarily looking at or for or to a Messiah, but just finding different comfort levels by which to interpret and live within the identification of Judaism?
Yes.
My first thought, Priscilla, on what you said is that we don't really know at what point these early Christians formally split off from the Jews. Did they leave or were they kicked out? And I raised that because that's kind of the struggle that we're going on into now. There was an effort several years ago by a humanistic synagogue to join the Reform movement. I don't know if people remember that. And the Reform movement rejected them. They would not accept them as a synagogue in the Reform movement. Now, they didn't say they weren't Jews. They said, we will not accept a synagogue that does not, that explicitly rejects the idea of God as a member. So the question becomes, where is the line? Because we've always gone through changes. One of the things that you're reflecting, though, I think, is somehow in around the 16th century, we became frozen. That we've, always had evolution, development in our observance, in our practice, in our dress, in our way we reacted to the outside world, where we would, over and over again, adopt and adapt. We would take things from the outside and we would incorporate them into and make them Jewish. Somehow in the 16th century or so, we stopped doing that, and we became frozen and in many ways sort of locked out of interaction with the non-Jewish community, with what was happening philosophically, what was happening ideologically in all of these in these communities. And when we broke out during the Enlightenment, the question was, could Judaism change? Or if you want to be a modern person, you have to leave Judaism. And that's where we, for instance, have Moses Mendelssohn, who was a completely observant Jew, but he was living in the modern world. He wasn't living in a ghetto. He wasn't living only with Jews, and he was accepting what was going on in the modern world. It was not by accident that he was in Germany. Phil, did you want to add something?
Well, that was a key point of the Haskalah.
Yeah, that's the Haskalah, meaning the Enlightenment, right?
Right.
So we have continued to struggle with this idea of, where are the limits? What's inside and what's outside? Where have we gone too far? People who didn't like going to a synagogue with an organ because they said it sounds like a church, right? For those people, it didn't feel Jewish to have a service with an organ. Now, was that unacceptable? Well, who makes these rules? Who decides what's acceptable and what's not acceptable? So in the synagogue in Paris that I went to when we were there, there was an organ. It was an Orthodox synagogue. It was an Orthodox synagogue that was taken over by the Sephardi immigration. It was an built as an Ashkenazi synagogue in 1880, I think, or 1870. It was a beautiful building designed by Eiffel, or the structure was from Eiffel Tower. After the Holocaust, the Ashkenazi community became, first of all, the Ashkenazi community was not religious. And second of all, they had been devastated by the Holocaust. In the 1960s, there's a huge influx in France of Jews from Morocco, from Algeria, from Tunisia, and they take over the synagogue. The organ is still there. I mean, they played the organ on Shabbat in that synagogue. Now the organ is there. When do they use it? They use it for weddings. It's not used on Shabbat. So it evolved, it changed, and it remains Jewish. Was it not Jewish when that organ was brought in? So where are the limits? Where is the comfort? And we're all competing, and in many ways we're if you read this the article that was in yesterday's New York Times by Thomas Friedman, he will tell you that article will tell you that one of the ways in which non-Orthodox Jews are losing the battle is that we're not having enough children. And the Orthodox in Israel and here in the United States are half the children in Israeli schools are ultra-Orthodox Jews. I think that's a statistic that was in that article. These are kids who are not getting good educations. I mean, Western educations. There, for the most part, their fathers are not employable because they don't have the skills for a modern society, and creates a huge problem. But within the Jewish community, numbers-wise, we're becoming a minority. Now it's way off that we become a minority, but what is Jewish? Where are the limits? What is legitimately Jewish and what isn't legitimately Jewish? There was a time in America when, in the Reform movement, they got rid of bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah. Why? They got rid of bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah because in American society, age 13 doesn't mean a thing, right? It has nothing to do with smoking, alcohol, driving, voting. 13 doesn't mean anything. So they created confirmation. Crazy idea because the word is so non-Jewish. And there were those who moved Shabbat to Sunday. Right? Why did they move Shabbat to Sunday? Because everybody worked 6 days a week. To get anybody to come to shul on Friday night and Saturday morning was impossible. The conservative movement invented late Friday evening services, which many early on thought was horrible. But it became an American thing. Why late Friday evening services? Because people worked at least until 6 o'clock on Friday. Certainly those people who were in retail worked on Friday. So there we move back and forth in terms of where we are, what we feel comfortable with, and where we and where we go. Here we have I don't even know how many synagogues we have here in Portland, but people go where they have friends, where they feel comfortable, where it fits, where they so what is legitimate Judaism? At this point, I can't tell you. I can tell you where I'm most comfortable. And
Rabbi, I had sorry.
Yep, go ahead.
Question. I don't know if this question is answerable, but what is the importance of the prophecies and predictions around a Messiah in Judaism? Obviously, in Christianity, it's central. In Judaism, it's always just seemed much less interesting to me to think about a Messiah than to think about what we are doing here and now ethically and so forth. But I don't really know how central it is, how important it is, how much of Jewish thought it drives, this whole question of somebody coming at the end of time to judge and save everyone and so forth. I'm really ignorant about it. So is there a way of assessing how important it is within Jewish thought overall?
It's a very good question. Anybody else want to answer it? I don't think we talk about it a lot. It's somehow, an ultimate dream, an ultimate goal that we are working to perfect the world. I mean, this is where Tikkun Olam comes. We are perfecting the world to bring the time of the Messiah, which we don't often think of as in human form, and it's somehow, how do we view a perfect world?
Rabbi, don't we talk about the messianic age or the Messiah?
That was something that when we were uncomfortable with the whole idea of a human being coming, and what is this human being and what is this human being going to do? Yes, we talked about a messianic age, which we are attempting to perfect the world. And that's very interesting, that in fact, this very important idea in Judaism somehow is not central, and as it is certainly in Christianity. Priscilla?
Well, for many years, up until the pandemic, I've been speaking in public and parochial schools, presenting, an overview of Judaism to classes in religions and world philosophy and world religions. And that question is always one that's asked by the kids in the class, whether it's over at Jesuit or it's at Sunset High School or the public high schools, wherever it is, the question of, Messiah comes up. So the answer that I give, and this is based on conversations with a number of rabbis in order to prepare for this, is actually Judaism is a messianic religion, okay? Because in our prayers, we are talking about Yavo HaMashiach, when the Messiah comes. And the whole idea is that there is the need to repair the world, that we're all involved in this together to make it a better world. And I include the kids who are in the classroom. It says it's not just Jews who have to repair the world, but all of us who have to work to honor other peoples, to honor other religions, to honor other cultures, so that time will come. But the fact that we honor Elijah and recognize Elijah in so many of what we do in our general practices, and this is pretty much across the board of the different branches of Judaism, we end Havdalah at the, when Shabbos is over, we end Havdalah with Eliyahu Hanavi. May Eliyahu come, may he come quickly, because that will foretell the coming of the Messiah. And if not today, within the week or sometime very soon. When we have a Brit Milah, or even a Bat Simcha, baby naming, or a Brit, there's the chair of Elijah. So that the Elijah is coming to look at every baby to say, is this the Messiah? I mean, this is part of the belief system, and we do it. And not just to say, well, it's a tradition, but there must be something there that also has us invite Elijah into Seder and have a cup of wine for Elijah. And again, to say, this could be the foretelling of Messiah. So I think in today's religion, in today's world, to have a hope that things could get better, that we all can take active steps to make things better, to repair the world, or to honor others in their beliefs, and to recognize that there's room for it all. I think it's an important message to be giving. Not only does it give us hope, but it also includes others in the process of looking forward to whatever the Messiah may be, for whomever, whatever. I get a lot of, I guess, comfort or positive feedback on that from the kids, the students. They're not so likely to say, but, there's only one. It's just say, oh, okay, there's some other beliefs out there too.
But I have the sense that it's not the same kind of reality that it was. There was a tradition that next to your bed at night, you had Nagelwasser, which is water for your fingernails. Why did you need Nagelwasser? Because should the Messiah come in the middle of the night, that you can quickly wash your hands and run out to greet the Messiah. We have all these kinds. I don't know anybody who's got Nagelwasser. I
can name them a few probably.
Is this the same kind of reality that it was? And once you universalize it, is it the same traditional Messiah that we traditionally talked about?
I have a question.
Yeah, Trudy.
I've always been taught that Elijah isn't the Messiah, that he comes to tell you the Messianic era is coming.
Yes, he's the announcer.
So what, I don't know, Priscilla, if that's what you're saying, or if you're saying, okay,
Elijah is
the
coming
Messiah.
to announce the coming of Messiah. Elijah's not
the Messiah as a person?
No.
Or what are you saying? See,
the description of that Messiah will come and come through the Golden Gate and whatnot. But no, I think it's a mindset, it's an age, but the important message is we all need to work together to make that time come. Who knows? But that Messiah, that Elijah is kind of the messenger, not
because the tradition is that Elijah never died. Yes, the tradition became that Elijah would be the one to announce the Messiah, and in fact,
the Messiah is a person.
And well, by tradition, yes, a descendant of David.
David, yeah.
Now, in Christian tradition, John the Baptist became Elijah. It's John the Baptist who announces the Messiah.
But the Christians are still talking about a human being.
Yep.
And that's where I guess I have a problem. Well, I mean that
That's why you're not Christian.
Yeah, millions of people. No, really. I mean, millions of thinking people, let's say, would still believe in a human being as the Son of God, as the Messiah, however we want to put it. I mean, it's amazing to me, frankly, that people would still believe in that form. In other words, again, Jesus.
I know.
It's a Jewish form. So in any event, next week, with your indulgence, I would like to meet again. It's a short chapter, chapter 13, from polemic to possibility. But what I would like to ask everyone to look around. I have a couple of possibilities I'm looking into, and if there's in particular a text that you find interesting, that we could explore together, maybe one that's not as in many ways written as cryptic a way and difficult as this one. Let's explore that for next week as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Have a good week.
Yes.
Thank you very
Be
much.
safe.
Here.
Here.